All right, fourth graders, good morning. Hope that everything's going well today. Your Christ-Light lesson is 3A. Christ-Light 3A. Today I'm just going to tell you the story as it came from the Bible. And interesting enough about today's story, the title of it is The Three Wise Men Worship Their Savior. There's a lot of ideas in people's minds about these three wise men. Oh, it didn't say three. It said the wise men. There's a lot of ideas that people have about these wise men that doesn't say that in the Bible. So today, here comes the Bible version, and then you can take that home and you can talk to your parents about it, and then we'll get a better knowledge of it, and tomorrow we'll read it. Okay, first of all, let's review first. We had Gabriel come, announce to Mary, and announce to Zechariah they're going to have kids. We had John going to be John the Baptist, born, and Zechariah wrote his name is John, and he could talk in, and he immediately praised God, said what a great job John's going to do, and that the Savior was coming. We had Mary and Joseph travel all the way to Bethlehem. Why? Because they were descendants of King David, and Jesus was going to be born of the descendants of King David, and they traveled all the way to Bethlehem to find no hotel, no place to stay, except for a stable, a barn. And that's where Mary gave birth to our Savior. We had the shepherd story where the shepherds came and they worshiped the Savior, and they went and they told everybody that the Savior was born. And then finally, well, we had Jesus. The parents followed the instructions that God had given them in the Old Testament and took Jesus, after naming him on the 8th day, to the temple on the 40th day, and they actually offered those doves in the sacrifice to them. And Anna and Simeon said great things about the baby. Well, here we're in our lesson today. Now we fast forward a little bit. And Jesus is probably anywhere from 1 year old to 2 year old at this time. Our setting is still in Bethlehem. They have not gone back up to Nazareth. Shortly they will. But they're in Bethlehem right now, and they're not in the stable anymore. After everybody had been counted, lots of people went back to their homes and their houses, but Mary had this little baby. And you don't usually travel 70 miles on a donkey with a little baby. So Joseph found them a home. And now they're staying in this house in Bethlehem. Well, about the time that Jesus was born, God created a brand new star. A star up there in the sky. And well, some of these wise men, who a lot of people think are kings, these three kings of Orient time. Just because a song says they were king doesn't mean they were kings. They were astrologers. They may have been kings inside of the group. There obviously was an astrologer. What an astrologer was is a person that would take a telescope and look at the stars and study the stars. They used the stars to help tell them the seasons as well as the time. And so these stars were always being looked at by travelers. And these travelers were called astrologers, study of the stars. And while the astrologers all of a sudden see this new, big, huge, bright star, it's like, what in the world is this? They must have studied some of the Old Testament talking about this king, because they followed this star all the way to Israel, the place where the Israelites had settled. The Israelites were the people that had the promised Savior promised to them, and so these astrologers must have also been Bible scholars. Well, they get to Jerusalem, and of course, this new baby is supposed to be this king, and so where do they go? They go to the king. Well, the king is King Herod, and King Herod is an awful man. All the people in Jerusalem are afraid of him because he's not an Israelite who loves the Israelites. No, he was appointed by the Romans, and so he's a Roman ruler of this area. And, well, if you were the king of an area, would you like some people to come in and say, hey, where's the new king? You'd be like, hey, I'm the king. There isn't any new king here. And Herod was disturbed. And because he was disturbed, all the people of Jerusalem who were under him were disturbed. Like, what is Herod going to do? One of Herod's favorite things to do was to put people to death. And so nobody stepped out of line because Herod would put him to death. So Herod's disturbed, and the people of Jerusalem are disturbed. Well, Herod calls the chief priests and the scholars of the law, and he says, where was this baby supposed to be born? These wise men want to find him. Well, the chief priests study the Bible, and they say, hey, in Bethlehem. Well, Bethlehem is actually not too far away from Jerusalem. In fact, Bethlehem is where a lot of shepherds hung out. And these shepherds took care of the cattle and the sheep and the livestock for the people of Jerusalem. And so, well, the wise men are going to go. Herod says, before you go, you find him. When we find him, come back. Tell me. I want to worship him too. Kill him. I want to kill him. Herod really wanted to kill him, so he's going to send those guys off to find the baby, report back to me, and, well, I want to worship him too. So the wise men went. They head for Bethlehem. Well, lo and behold, guess who helps them out? God does. That star goes right over to the house of where the baby was staying, and guess what the wise men do when they get there? They worship him. Now, it would have taken them a long time to get from their country in the east all the way to Israel. And so that's why Bible scholars say, hey, somewhere between 1 year and 2 years old, the baby Jesus is. So he's a little toddler now, not a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes anymore, okay? Maybe a little toddler holding Mary's hands and walking around. And these wise men come in and they start worshiping him. Not only do they worship him, but they got these big gifts for him. They unpack these gifts, and they give him gold. One of the gifts was gold. They opened up this gift of gold, and they gave it to the baby. It'd be like money for us, okay? So you're going to give a baby some money. Well, probably for the parents, right? Mary and Joseph, they were young. Maybe Joseph hadn't found a good job yet, and yet God's provided them through these wise men. The next one that they got was incense. This would be stuff that you would burn to smell very sweet aroma. And the third thing, myrrh, very expensive, a balm or lotion that you would put on your body. And again, unbelievably expensive. So they gave them all of these gifts to help provide for them. We do that nowadays, right? We provide for our churches by giving our offerings to the church, or we bring gifts in to give to the pastor, or we give to our new teacher. We had a new K-5 teacher. We brought her some gifts to say, hey, thanks for being here. And that's what the wise men did. Now, wait a minute. They're going to go tell Herod, and Herod's plan is really, I'm going to kill this baby. So God's going to protect his own son. He actually sends the wise men a dream. And in this dream, he says, don't go back to Herod. So instead of going back through Jerusalem to their country, they actually went a different route and skipped Jerusalem. Well, I'm not going to give it away, but you're going to see in our next lesson that this does not make Herod very happy. And we're going to see what he's going to do. All right, key takeaways from this lesson. 1, we got more people worshiping the Savior, and we got many ways for them to do it. Traveling long distances and giving gifts. We, too, should give our gifts, whether it's time or whether it's money, to our churches, right? In worship of our Savior Jesus. And then 2, hey, we want to know that Jesus is the promised Savior, that even adult wise men come and worship this little baby. That's how important he is. All right, you guys have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.